Hey, welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. Congratulations, the doctor said softly, like it was good news. You're pregnant, about 4 weeks along. For a moment the words didn't land. They just hung there, cold and unreal, until they sank in and my chest tightened, panic flooding me. Pregnant. Did she just say I'm pregnant? You'll need an alpha present for proper regulation, she added carefully. Without one, your body will have a harder time adjusting. There could be complications. Just hearing the word alpha made bile rise in my throat. I don't have one, I whispered. Her smile was small and pitying. That makes things more difficult. She hesitated, glancing at my file. We notified your guardians. They're listed as your parents. Someone should be here soon. I almost laughed. They wouldn't come if I was dying. Hours passed. Nurses changed shifts. Patients came and went. No one came for me. When the doctor returned, her expression said everything. You'll need to sign your own release form, she murmured. My hand shook so hard the pen nearly tore the paper. Then I gathered my things and walked out of the hospital. The night air was damp and cold, my steps heavier with each block. How am I supposed to do this? I can barely keep myself together, and now, there's a child. By the time I reached home, my body felt hollow. But the moment I stepped inside, Father's voice cut through like a whip. What's this I hear? That you're pregnant? He stood in the living room, arms folded, face carved from stone. His alpha scent pressing down like a weight. Mother sat on the couch, eyes downcast. My brother Jeho leaned against the wall, smirking like a viper waiting to strike. Tell me who the father is, Father snapped. Now. I don't. My throat burned. Oh, I doubt he even knows, Jeho said, voice dripping mockery. You've been reeking of alpha for weeks. Who is he, Jeha? Some cheap fling? Or did you spread your legs for whoever offered the highest bid? Shut up. My voice cracked, tears burning my eyes. Jeho's smirk widened, as if he wasn't the reason I was in this predicament in the first place. Father's tone sharpened. After all we've provided, you shame this family with a child you can't even name the father of? With no alpha to claim you. I shook under their words, tears spilling down my face. Being the only Omega in a family of alphas, I was treated like a defect, a stain, especially by my elder brother Jeho, who made it his mission to remind me every day. You will terminate it, Father said coldly. There's no future for a bastard child with no name, no family. If you refuse, you are no son of mine. The word terminate clawed at me. My hand instinctively went to my stomach as horror flooded me. Mother finally looked up, her tone softer but no less cold. It's what you have to do, Jeha. Afterward, you'll go to your uncle in Jeju while we arrange your engagement to a proper alpha. I stared at her, the one person I'd hoped would be on my side. But she is supporting the termination of my baby? No, I whispered. Father's brows knit in fury. What did you say? I said no. The word tore out of me, raw and desperate. This is my life. My choice. I won't kill my child just because you're ashamed of me. The silence that followed was brutal. Then Father spoke. Then you are no longer my child. Get out of my house. I stumbled upstairs, choking on sobs. My hands shook as I stuffed clothes into a bag, tears blurring my vision. When I came down again, no one tried to stop me. Father turned away. Mother stared at the floor. Jeho just grinned. So I walked out, took the first bus to the next city, to the only person who might still want me. My grandmother. Chapter 2. I sat on the bus, replaying the last few weeks over and over. It had barely been 5 weeks since my brother's call. The way he said my name, sweet and deliberate, should have set off every alarm. Jeho never reached out without a plan to ruin me. He'd asked me to bring a document for some deal, and the address he gave me was an elite club. I hated places like that. Loud, crowded, dripping with pheromones, filled with alphas who saw Omegas as prey. I kept my head down, moving fast, heart hammering. I found him easily, surrounded by a group of men. His tie was loose, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to show the mark on his collarbone. A beta girl had given it to him last week, though he claimed it was an Omega. I handed over the file and turned to leave, but he held me there, introducing me to his friends. I didn't bother remembering their names. They teased me, mocked my stiffness, pushed me to loosen up. Then he handed me a glass of wine. I hesitated, but he nodded, promising I'd be free afterward. Foolishly, I trusted him. Within minutes, heat coiled low in my stomach. My legs shook, my breath hitched. Panic raced through me like electricity. No, 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 I whispered, realizing too late what he'd done. Alphas noticed. Their eyes changed sharp, hungry, predatory. I ran. Down the hall, down the stairs, every nerve screaming for escape. Someone grabbed my wrist. I yanked free, stumbled, heart hammering. So I ran. Through the hall, down the stairs, heat chasing me like fire licking up my spine. My vision blurred, every nerve screaming for relief. Someone grabbed my wrist, and I ripped free, stumbling. My heart pounded, and I couldn't breathe. I just knew I needed to get out of there. And then I collided with someone. Strong arms closed around me before I hit the ground. A scent crashed over me, deep and steady, cutting through the chaos like thunder through storm clouds. Alpha. Not just any alpha. This one was overwhelming, rich, grounding. It sank into my bones, cooling the fever in my blood, pulling the air back into my lungs. I clung to him without thinking. My body trembled. My instincts screamed, safe. My vision tilted, darkened. And the last thing I felt was the stranger's hand steadying me, holding me up as the world slipped away. When I woke, I was in a hotel room. The sheets were cool, the air too quiet. My body felt strangely light. No heat, no haze, just an ache in my thighs and a hollowness in my chest. For a moment, I almost thought it had been a nightmare. Then the memories bled through. A mouth on my neck, hands gripping my waist, heat under my skin. That scent, thick, consuming, alpha. It had swallowed me whole until I couldn't think, couldn't fight, only cling. Shame rose like bile. I had been with an alpha. Worse, my body had wanted it, needed it, begged for it. My fingers clawed the sheets as if I could rip the memory out. No, I whispered to the empty room. No, no, no. I forced myself upright, ignoring the burn in my muscles. I had to get out of here. Whoever he was, I couldn't risk him thinking I belonged to him. I found my clothes neatly folded on a chair, yanked them on with shaking hands, and bolted, taking the first cab I saw. By the time I stumbled into my bathroom, my stomach was twisting so hard I thought I might throw up. I turned the shower as hot as it would go and scrubbed until my skin burned. Again and again, nails raked across my arms, my chest, between my legs. The steam stung my eyes, but it didn't matter. His scent still clung to me, stubborn and warm, and I hated it. When I stepped out, dripping and raw, Jeho was waiting on my bed. His eyes were sharp, his pheromones flooding the room like a trap. "Where the hell were you?" he demanded, stepping closer. "Who were you with? Which alpha took you?" "No one," I snapped, clutching the towel tighter around me. "I left the party and crashed at a friend's place." "Don't lie," he sneered. "His scent's all over you. Tell me his name so I can get the money he owes me." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" He smirked, leaning down until his face was inches from mine. "The guys were bidding on who'd take your virginity. So," his voice dropped to a hiss. "Who finally won?" The floor tilted. My stomach lurched. "Why you did this?" "Of course I did. Don't waste a good thing." He straightened, eyes glittering. "Now tell me his name. I want what's owed to me." Something snapped. I screamed, raw and ugly, and hurled the nearest thing at him. A lamp, a book, anything my hands could find. "You're disgusting. You ruined me." He didn't even flinch. He caught my wrist mid-swing, squeezing until pain shot up my arm. "Stop acting so dramatic," he muttered. "You were always going to spread your legs for some alpha. At least this way you're useful." He released me, and I crumpled to the floor, clutching my wrist, sobbing until it hurt to breathe. He turned toward the door, throwing one last glance over his shoulder. "Never mind. I'll find out myself. You're good for nothing anyway." And then he was gone. I stayed there on the floor, shaking, wishing I could disappear. What had I done to deserve this family? But even as I cried, a thought surfaced, small, defiant. I would finish school, get a job, leave this house and this city behind. One day, I'd be free of them all. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. Barely a month after that night, my body started betraying me with nausea and fevers that left me shivering under blankets, night sweats soaking through the sheets. I told myself it was just stress, exhaustion, Anything but the truth, until one afternoon on campus. A sharp pain knifed through my stomach, the world tilting and spinning until I collapsed. When I woke, I was staring at the sterile white ceiling of a hospital room. A doctor's voice cutting through the fog, telling me I was pregnant, just 6 weeks along, and suddenly every rational thought I had scattered like ashes in the wind. The word hung in the air and settled in my chest, heavy and impossible, and for a moment, I thought about ending it, sparing a child a life like mine. But the second I got home and faced the cold, judging eyes of my family, I realized this child was mine, the only thing in the world that belonged to me. It became clear who I had to turn to. My grandmother. I hadn't seen her in years, not since before everything in our family had gone sour. But the moment I stood on her doorstep, she opened her arms and pulled me in, whispering, "My poor boy, you're home now." And for the first time in a long time I felt the tension in my chest ease, even if only a little. I wanted to tell her everything. The hospital, my father's rage, the baby growing inside me. But shame clamped my mouth shut, and she didn't push, just gave me a bed, hot food, and quiet that let me breathe again. Chapter 3. The days that followed were slow and grounding. I helped her with the diner she runs at the corner of her street, swept the floors, washed dishes, carried trays, and for a few hours each day, I could almost pretend life hadn't completely fallen apart. But my body wouldn't let me forget. Every morning, I woke to nausea that left me doubled over, and my grandmother noticed, as she always did, bringing ginger tea, pressing a cool hand to my forehead. One morning, when the nausea lingered too long, she sat me down at the kitchen table, her eyes soft but steady, and asked the question I had been trying to avoid. "How far along are you?" The words broke me. My lips trembled, my chest tightening, and I whispered, 6 weeks, letting tears spill freely before I even realized I was crying. Her hand found mine, warm and grounding, and she asked gently if I knew who the father was. I shook my head, sobbing harder, unable to put together the words. She drew me into her arms before I could finish, murmuring that she didn't need details, that all that mattered was I wasn't alone and that the baby would be loved. I clung to her words like a lifeline. She became my anchor, accompanying me to every appointment, holding my hand through the uncertainty, never flinching at the looks from doctors. When the ultrasound at 5 months revealed a girl, my chest constricted in disbelief and awe, my hand instinctively finding my grandmother's, her thumb brushing mine, grounding me as she whispered, "See, she's already showing her strength." That night, we sat together in her cozy room, old movies flickering on the TV while we tossed around names. Every suggestion made me wince, shrug, until one slipped naturally from her lips, Sirin, and then the baby kicked. I gasped, my hands flying to my belly, and my grandmother laughed through tears. She chose for herself. I laughed too, letting it tumble out in a way I hadn't in months. For the first time, it felt real. The life growing inside me, the heartbeat beneath my hands, tethering me to tomorrow in a way nothing else had. Adjusting to life with my grandmother grew easier with each day. My old dreams, my old family, all of it felt like a distant echo. My focus narrowed to the life growing inside me and helping her in any way I could. Running errands at the market became part of the rhythm, but as my body changed around the 5-month mark, it became harder to manage. Not because of the market itself, I liked the noise, the smells, the rhythm, but because of the whispers that always followed. Poor thing, already showing, and no ring on his finger. Grandma never let them slide. One sharp glare from her and the gossipers scattered. Yet I still heard the words, always. My belly had rounded stubbornly beneath my clothes, impossible to hide. "Stop frowning," Grandma said, adjusting her basket on her hip. "Your face will wrinkle before your time." I huffed. "Maybe I want to look scary. Keep the gossiping hens away." "Scary? You?" She snorted. "You look like a sulking cat." I grinned despite myself and fell into step behind her, ignoring the murmurs. At a vegetable stall, her voice firm and confident as she haggled with the seller, I leaned against a post, hand stroking my stomach. My baby kicked hard, a little impatient, a little defiant. "Yeah, I know," I whispered. "It'll all be over soon, so you can come out and show them who's boss." Back home, she set me to work peeling potatoes while she unpacked the rest. My movements were slower, hands trembling from fatigue, but I wanted to help. I hated feeling useless. "You don't have to, you know," she said, glancing at me. "If I don't, I'll just stare at the ceiling and dream about fried chicken dipped in ice cream," I muttered. She wrinkled her nose. Disgusting. Tell that to your grandchild, I said, gesturing at my stomach. She's the one making the demands. Grandma chuckled, and that night we ate together. My belly cramped afterward, a dull, constant reminder of the life inside me, and I leaned back, groaning softly. Her hand found mine warm and grounding. You're stronger than you think, she murmured. I pressed back, tears pricking my eyes. I hope she thinks so too, I whispered, fingers brushing over my belly. At night, alone, the weight of it all hit me differently. Hands over my stomach, I couldn't stop thinking of the alpha who had done this. Sometimes his scent, dark and overwhelming, surged in my memory. Sometimes flashes of that night, how my body had clung to him even while my mind screamed no. And sometimes I dreamed of strong arms pinning me down, of lips dragging fire down my throat, of being filled so completely it left me trembling. I woke wet, ashamed, mortified that my body still remembered. I knew it was natural, that Omegas carried the imprint of an alpha's touch long after, but knowing didn't make it easier. Pregnancy without an alpha pheromone was harder and painful than anything I had imagined. It was swollen feet and aching hips, nights spent tossing and turning, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. It was vomiting in the diner bathroom during the lunch rush, then walking back out like nothing happened. It was biting down on my sleeve at night to muffle the whimpers when cramps stole my breath. By the 8th month, I could barely walk without wincing. Every step felt like my body was splitting open from the inside. One morning, when I limped into the kitchen, Grandma slammed her dish towel down so hard it startled me. That's it, she said. No more work. You're going to rest. But, no buts. Her eyes softened. You've done enough, child. Let me carry the rest. So I stopped working at the diner, even though it made me feel useless. Instead, I buried myself in books and online guides about newborn care, feeding schedules, swaddling, fevers, hospital bag checklists. I scribbled out small, shaky plans. How I could take online classes again after the baby, how I'd save every coin from side jobs. But Sirin had her own plans. 3 weeks from my due date, I woke in the dark to a sharp, tearing pain. My breath caught, my body locked. For a moment, I thought I might die right there in bed. Another wave hit, harder, and I dragged myself upright, clutching the wall, knees buckling, vision blurring. One step, then another, until finally, I reached Grandma's door and pushed it open. She shot up instantly, her eyes wide. Child, you're in labor. She's not due for another 3 weeks, I gasped, clutching my belly. But Grandma was already moving. In a blur of phone calls and hurried voices, neighbors were at the door, hauling me gently into a cab. Someone held me upright as another contraction split me open. Grandma's hand never left mine. At the hospital, everything dissolved into pain and flashing lights. I remember the cold of the table, the burn of the contractions, the blur of anesthesia. Then through it all, a sound. A wail, strong and sharp, cutting through everything. When they laid her against me, tiny, warm, impossibly real, I sobbed so hard my chest shook. She was here. Sirin, my daughter. Chapter 4. 3 months after Sirin was born, I was finally finding a rhythm. It wasn't perfect, never perfect, but there was a pattern I could cling to. Sleepless nights and endless cries became our strange little dance. I learned to hold a bottle with one hand while brushing tears from her face with the other, whispering promises into her hair that I would keep her safe, that she would never feel unloved like I had. One evening, Grandma pressed an envelope into my hands. What's this? I asked, blinking against the weight of it. My savings, she said. For you. For her. No, I can't take it. I'll work. I'll find a way. Raising a child isn't easy, she said softly. Especially the first year. You'll need this. Take it. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to be strong, to insist I could do this alone, but my chest ached and my body still felt raw. When I looked at Sirin, curled against me, I realized I didn't have a choice. I clutched the envelope, guilt and gratitude tangled together. I'll pay you back, I whispered. Grandma only smiled, pressing her hand to my cheek. Raise her well. That will be enough. That night, I held Sirin close, staring at her tiny face and feeling the weight of the future pressing down. My family had turned their backs, leaving me with nothing but this old house and my grandmother's hands. But when Sirin's little fingers curled around mine, something inside me steadied. We'll make it, I whispered against her forehead. No matter what, we'll make it. For the first time in months, I let myself believe it. Well, till Grandma started coughing. At first, it was just a small tickle, the kind she waved off with a laugh. But it got worse. She grew weak, and one night I woke to the sound of metal clattering on the tile. I found her on the kitchen floor, clutching her side, pale and sweating. I almost dropped Sirin in my panic, hands shaking as I called for help. At the hospital, the doctor explained gallbladder disease and that surgery needed to happen soon. I nodded through the instructions, keeping Sirin close, trying to hold myself together. But when I reached the administration desk, the bill hit me. My chest tightened. The numbers were astronomical. I had no savings, no income, and I knew my parents wouldn't lift a finger. For a moment, I thought about walking away, pretending none of this was real, but I couldn't leave Sirin behind. Then a voice came beside me, low, steady, threading straight through the chaos in my head. "I'll cover the bill." I froze. My breath hitched. Sirin stirred in my arms, and I gripped her tighter as if that could shield us both. Slowly, I turned, and standing there was a man I hadn't seen before, yet somehow felt familiar. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes that clung to him. He filled the hallway with a presence that pressed against me before he even moved. His scent hit me first. A deep, grounding alpha fragrance that wrapped around me, dragging me back to that night. The heat, the helplessness, the way my body had clung to him like it belonged there. My knees threatened to give out. He stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. Sharp, unyielding, yet softened at the edges, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "I found you," he said, his voice low, cracking at the edges. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to vanish, but my body betrayed me. Frozen in place, my scent already intertwining with his in a way that made my pulse spike. His gaze dropped to Sirin, stirring in my arms, and I saw his expression shift. First shock, then recognition, and finally something deeper. Raw, fierce, protective. My throat tightened at the weight of it. Sirin let out a tiny whimper, and it snapped me out of the haze. "I'm sorry," I whispered, words spilling before I could stop them. "I don't know who you are." He froze, hands rising slowly as if to show he meant no harm, yet his eyes never left me or us. "I've been searching for you," he said, voice low, roughened with tension. "Everywhere. For months. The hotel was empty when I returned. I thought." His jaw clenched, breath hitching. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Something inside me cracked at the confirmation that he was the alpha from that night, the one I'd clung to. I shoved the thought down. It didn't matter. I didn't want to be anywhere near him. "You're mistaken," I whispered, turning to leave. He moved quickly, stepping in front of me. "Don't be like that, Jeha. I can tell you remember me. Let me handle your grandmother's bill. Then we talk. Okay?" "No. I can take care of it myself," I said, though relief and desperation warred inside me. He raised an eyebrow, almost amused, then handed a black card to the nearby nurse with quiet instructions to cover the bill and prep her for surgery. Her eyes widened, and she hurriedly complied. I stood frozen, clutching Sirin, stunned. His scent hit me again, sharp and grounding, pulling memories of that night to the surface. By the time I found words, Grandma was already being wheeled into surgery. He gestured to the bench nearby. I lowered myself onto it, arms aching from holding Sirin. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the occasional glance he stole at me, though his attention was mostly on her. Each time he looked, I instinctively pulled her closer. He noticed but said nothing. Then Sirin started crying, sharp and insistent. I tried everything, but she wouldn't stop. "Give her to me," he said, voice firm. I jerked my head up, hands tightening around her. "No, you don't get to touch her. She's crying because you're exhausted." "Let me help," he said. "No, I can handle this myself," I snapped, panic rising. But her cries only grew, my fingers shaking as I tried to soothe her. He didn't argue. He just waited, calm and steady, arms still outstretched. Against my will, against the knot of fear in my chest, I gave in. The moment he held her, her crying softened. His large, strong hands cradled her tiny body with care, as if she were the most fragile thing in the world. He hummed low, almost instinctively, and Sirin quieted completely, her fists unclenching, eyes fluttering shut. I froze, breath caught in my chest. A man like him, powerful, terrifying, the alpha I swore I hated, was holding my baby as if she were the center of his universe. and I hated myself because it made something ache deep inside me. Slowly, my tension eased, my body surrendering against my will to the steady pull of his soothing pheromones. The warmth and quiet strength of him wrapped around us, lulling my racing thoughts, and before I knew it, exhaustion claimed me as I fell asleep. Wow, you've made it this far. If you're enjoying the story and still haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It means a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. Alright, let's get back to the story. Chapter 5. When I woke, I was in a different room, alone. Sirin wasn't with me. Panic slammed into my chest as I shot upright, already imagining the worst. I was halfway to the door when it opened, and he walked in calm, composed. Our daughter tucked against his chest, a half-empty bottle of milk in his hand. Relief crashed through me so hard my knees went weak. I rushed forward and snatched her from him, my voice shaking. Don't you dare. Don't ever. She was hungry, he said softly. I fed her. That's all. I glared at him, holding Sirin tight. You don't get to feed my daughter without my permission. His eyes hardened a fraction. I understand you're scared and confused, but you can't deny she's mine too. And there is no way I will harm my child or her father. My throat tightened. I wanted to say something snappy to him. Before I could respond, a nurse stepped in, relieved. Your grandmother's out of surgery. She's stable. I exhaled and left for her room, the alpha trailing silently behind me. Grandma was still asleep, and the nurse advised me to go home for her things and rest. I'll take you, he said quietly. I should have refused, but exhaustion weighed me down like a stone. I followed him, ignoring the looks people threw our way. Me pale and clutching Sirin, him towering with a presence that didn't belong in our small town. When we got outside, I finally understood why they were staring. Lining up before us on the curb are 3 black cars and men in suits, bowing as soon as he appeared. Sir, they said in unison. I froze, my mouth dry. He wasn't just an alpha. He was someone powerful. For a moment, I almost felt relief that Sirin hadn't been the product of some messed up wayward alpha. But this does not seem to be the case. But the thought didn't comfort me. Power was still power. An alpha was still an alpha. He could take her from me, and I wouldn't be able to stop him. He opened the car door and gestured for me to get in. Like a ghost, I climbed into the leather interior, holding Sirin close as if she were my shield. He slid in beside me and signaled the driver to move. I sat stiff in the back of the car, Sirin cradled against my chest, her tiny warmth a tether in the storm raging inside me. My eyes flicked between the tinted window and the man beside me. The hum of the engine couldn't drown the knot of fear and disbelief tightening in my chest. How did you find me? I asked, voice low, sharp, almost breaking. He didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on Sirin, on the little fist curled against my shirt. Then finally he spoke. I had people searching for you everywhere. For months. He reached into his coat and handed me a tablet. I glanced down, and the image made my stomach twist. A blurry photo of me holding Sirin, smiling down at her. My mind raced. Probably a stranger had snapped it at the diner where I worked, and it somehow ended up in his hands. The thought of just how much effort he had poured into finding us made my chest tighten further. So what? You saw an Omega you once slept with her child and decided to hunt us down to claim her. My voice trembled, a mixture of anger and disbelief. He smiled faintly, almost amused. You finally admit she's mine. And no, I was searching for you long before that photo surfaced. It only helped me find you faster. My breath caught. And who exactly are you? My cheeks burned, my voice tighter than I wanted. Because clearly you're not just some alpha. He tilted his head, gaze sharp and steady. Rio Minseek, he said quietly, CEO of the Ming Corporation. My stomach lurched. The Ming Corporation wasn't just any company. It was a colossus. Everything from tech to finance, media to real estate. I doubt you would find anyone in the country who had never used a product or service owned by them. His family was in the top 1% of the nation. And this allayed my fears even further. I don't care who you are, I muttered, tightening my hold on Sirin. I don't want anything to do with you. He leaned slightly, and the faint curl of his alpha scent filled the car. Deep, grounding, almost magnetic. You don't believe that, Jay-ha, he said, voice low. You have everything to do with me now, and there's no way I'll leave you or our daughter alone. The sooner you accept that, the easier it will be for both of us. I turned away, staring out the tinted glass, ignoring the blush that crept through my body. Damn him, this is why I stay clear of alphas. By nature, omegas are bound to submit to them, and I don't know how long I can push him without crumbling. By the time we pulled up to the house, I was mentally exhausted from trying to come up with too many scenarios of how I could get out of this. I carried Sirin, who had fallen asleep in her crib, determined to shut the door on him, but he followed me inside. You can leave now. Thanks for driving us home, I demanded once I immediately placed Sirin down. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, unbothered. So what's her name? You haven't told me yet. I clenched my fists. I don't want to. Come on, he countered. His eyes were steady, heavy with something like guilt. I deserve to know the name of my daughter, don't you think? My blood went cold. Deserve? You forced yourself on a defenseless Omega, and you think you deserve to know the name of the product of that encounter? His face darkened as he walked closer to me. You clearly have no memory of that night if you claim I forced myself on you. I kind of saved you. I stepped back a bit, straining to hold his gaze. Then tell me what happened. I can barely remember the events of that night. For a moment he said nothing, just studied me with that unnerving stillness that made me want to squirm before gesturing for us to sit. When you fell into my hands that night, he began quietly, his eyes never leaving mine. You were running from a pack of alphas. Your scent was off. Fear tangled with heat. And I hid you in a room, flooding it with my pheromones to keep them away. But your heat was tearing through the walls, pulling at me like gravity. It triggered my rut. His voice tightened as he continued. I tried to fight it. I really did. But you kept begging for relief, Jeha. And I gave it. I couldn't not. The words hit like a stone in water, rippling through the fragments of memory I'd been avoiding. The pain must have been so unbearable that I'd clung to him without thinking, begging unconsciously for release. So I gave in, he said finally, his tone flat but his eyes raw. I lost myself. I nodded you. It was the only thing that made sense that night. I won't lie. I wanted it, every second of it. But if I hadn't, you wouldn't have survived. My throat burned. You think that makes it better? That you branded me without asking? No, his voice dropped lower. It makes me guilty, but it also makes me yours. Forever. I blinked hard, looking away from him as tears stung my eyes. I hate alphas, I whispered. Any Omega would have been thrilled to be the one I nodded, he replied, leaning back. With you carrying my child, I expected you to come knocking at my door, demanding your share. But you didn't. That's why I searched. And that's how I found out you despise alphas. My family are all alphas, I explained. The word family tasted bitter in my mouth. My brother spiked my drink, set me up, sold me to his friends, and my parents disowned me for refusing to abort. So yeah, alphas disgust me. His expression cracked then, feral anger flickering beneath a carefully controlled voice. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not like them. If you let me, I'll prove it. For as long as it takes. I bit the inside of my cheek. You can't just waltz in and play father. We don't need you. He leaned forward, voice soft but steel underneath. You may not want me, but she needs me, and I need her, and I need you, whether you admit it or not. Tears blurred my vision. I hate you, I whispered again. But the words cracked this time, brittle and unsure. I'll take your hate, he said, unflinching, as long as I get to stay. We stay there in silence for a while, with only Sirin's tiny sighs filling the air. Her name is Sirin, I said at last. His eyes lit slowly, and a small, approving smile curved his lips. Chapter 6. A strong name, he murmured. It suits her. He shifted closer, his warmth brushing against me. You did good, Jeha. You're strong. Brave. I want you to know that. My heart clenched at his words. I hated that I needed them. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I tried to hold myself together. He didn't know the truth. I wasn't strong. I'd wanted to give up so many times. Maybe it was his soothing pheromones, curling softly around me. But my body sagged, tension melting like ice under sunlight. I watched him carefully as he raised a hand to my face, wiping at my tears with a gentleness I didn't expect. I didn't push him away. For a while we sat there like that, until Sirin's cry cut through the quiet. He stood up with me, holding her while I prepared her formula. For a moment it felt like we were a real family. My heart ached as he took the bottle from my hands and fed her himself, looking down at her like she was his entire world. It felt surreal, like my life had flipped in a single day. But even as I watched him, a part of me stayed braced. I didn't know yet what kind of man Minsik really was, and I wasn't going to let him into my life without a fight. True to his word, Minsik stayed, cramped into my grandmother's small apartment. He didn't leave, no matter how many times I told him to go or slammed doors in his face. At first, it infuriated me. A man with more money than the whole town acting domestic. He washed dishes, folded laundry poorly, and even got his men to sweep the porch. He fed the baby when I couldn't, cradling her against his chest, rocking her until she slept. On the fourth night, I woke to empty sheets, panic stabbing my chest. Barefoot, I stumbled toward the glow under the living room door, and froze. He was there, seated in the armchair with my daughter curled against him. Her fists tangled in his shirt, face tucked to his throat, breathing slow. He hummed low, a soft, vibrating sound that steadied her instantly. I leaned against the door frame, torn between anger, guilt, and relief. His scent filled the room, warm, grounding, making my knees weak. My daughter sighed, his arm instinctively tightening around her, and I felt a jolt I couldn't place. He lifted his head, eyes locking on mine. "I didn't mean to wake you," he said quietly. She was crying. I thought I could help. I stepped forward slowly, arms crossed. "She doesn't settle that easily for me," I said, brittle and tired. He didn't flinch. He brushed a thumb over her soft hair. "She knows me, my scent. My blood is in hers. It doesn't mean she loves you any less." Something inside me cracked. I wanted to scream, to run, to collapse. Instead, I sank onto the couch, hiding my face. "It's not fair," I whispered. He came closer, sitting beside me, keeping our daughter in his arms. He didn't hand her over or try to console me. He just stayed there, close enough that his scent wrapped around us both, grounding and infuriating all at once. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze through the blur of tired tears. And for once, I didn't see the alpha who ruined my life. I saw the father who had been missing all along. And that terrified me more than anything because the walls around my resolve were cracking more and more each day. When Grandma was awake enough for visitors, he followed me to the hospital. The moment she saw him, her face hardened. "So you're the one who impregnated my grandson," she said, voice sharp but threaded with concern. He bowed his head slightly. "Yes, ma'am." She gripped my hand, eyes flashing. "How dare you leave him to suffer alone? How dare you let my grandchild carry this burden without you? Grandma, please." "He didn't know," I said quickly. Her gaze softened on me, though her disapproval lingered. "Even so, you're a father now. Act like it." He met her eyes steadily. "I intend to." I should have felt relief, but instead my chest tightened. Every time I found a reason to hate him, he quietly dismantled it, with actions, not words. And with his pheromones constantly around me, I was finding it harder and harder to resist him. Later that evening, after putting Sirin to sleep and arranging Grandma's room for her discharge, I found him on the porch. Shirtless, sunlight catching the sharp lines of his shoulders, he bent over a stack of papers. I froze mid-step, heart hammering. I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't stop tracing the curve of his arms, the concentration etched into his brow. I turned away quickly, but the image stayed, haunting me for days. Minsik wasn't subtle about his attraction either. He found every opportunity. Hugs when I least expected them, spoon-feeding me while I fed Sirin, carrying me bridal-style to bed when exhaustion hit, pressing gentle kisses to my hair after. That evening, fresh from the shower, I froze. He was already in my room, eyes locked on mine. Heat surged through me as they drifted downward, settling on my abdomen. I glanced down, noticing my C-section scar, and hastily tied my robe tighter. He closed the distance before I could move, gently halting my hands. "Don't hide it," he murmured, fingers tracing the scar in a touch that sent shivers through me. "Did it hurt badly?" he asked softly. "I was under anesthesia, so I don't know, but before then, it hurt." "She fought to come out early," I admitted. He smiled faintly and lifted his hands to my face, cradling it. The heat, the scent of him, it pressed against my senses, making my pulse spike. I leaned forward almost on instinct, anticipation coiling in my chest. But instead of a kiss, his lips pressed to my temple so soft I almost missed it. "I'm sorry you had to go through that alone," he murmured. The words, the touch, the heat lingering in the air. It left me breathless, my body betraying me with a flush I couldn't hide. I stepped back, forcing control, heart hammering. "Yeah, well, you didn't know," I said, voice shaky, even as my mind betrayed me, replaying every moment of his nearness. I hurried into the other room, but the warmth of him lingered, teasing, making me aware of the pull I'd tried to ignore, and I knew, with a sinking thrill, that resisting him was only going to get harder. Chapter 7. The next day, we picked up my grandma, who was thrilled to be home. She didn't scold me for letting Minsick stay. If anything, she insisted his presence was good for the baby. By dinner, she had him cornered, grilling him about his life until I knew more than I cared to. Minsick ordered far more food than we could eat, quietly proving he was nothing like the other alphas I'd known. Reliable, patient, careful. And I was already losing strength from resisting the pull he had on me. My body reacted every time he moved or even left for meetings, my heart jumping at every passing car. Grandma noticed, teasing me, and I couldn't even deny it. Well, I didn't have to for long, because one night after Grandma had gone to bed, exhausted from her recovery, Sirin slept soundly in her crib. I was finishing the dishes, arms aching, when I felt him there, leaning in the doorway, watching me with that calm, predatory patience he always carried. "Stop staring," I snapped, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can't," he said simply. "You're too beautiful when you're angry." Heat curled low in my belly. I rolled my eyes, but it didn't stop the pulse of something deep and urgent. Before I could move past him, his hand closed around my wrist, guiding me against the wall. "Don't you think you've run from me long enough?" His voice was low, tense, a warning threaded with something darker. I wasn't running," I whispered, breath hitching. "Liar." His lips brushed against mine in the same instant, claiming, demanding, and everything inside me fell into motion. My knees threatened to buckle, hands gripping his shirt, trying to steady myself even as every nerve fired at his touch. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, heat pressing me into him, until there was no space left. His hand cupped my jaw, tilting my head, and I felt the gravity of him. The alpha pull, stronger than anything I'd ever known. My own scent rose, mingling with his, binding me to him in a way my mind hadn't prepared for. The kiss deepened, slow, intoxicating, tasting of longing and something primal. Every touch of his lips, every brush against my cheek and jaw, made my body hum and ache in ways I'd never imagined. I didn't pull back, couldn't. The world narrowed to him, to this moment, to the pull between us that neither reason nor fear could deny. When he lifted me onto the counter, his hands firm against my hips, I gasped, breaking the kiss for just a moment. "The baby! She's asleep," he murmured, voice low against my throat, and brushed a searing kiss along my jaw. "And I won't stop unless you tell me no." I didn't. His lips found mine again, slow, demanding, claiming, each kiss pressing me further into the pull I'd been denying. Hands roamed, bodies pressed together, his heat flowing into me, and for the first time in months, I let myself fall entirely into it. We didn't go all the way, but it was enough to leave my legs trembling, my breath ragged, my heart thundering with a mix of fear and release. When it was over, he held me close, arms secure around me as I rested against him, safe and spent. And when he carried me to my bed, the warmth of him against my back, the rhythm of his chest under my cheek, it pulled me into the first real sleep I'd had in months, calm, tethered, and utterly his. I woke to find him already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, watching me with that same steady intensity. "Come home with me," he said quietly. His fingers slid over mine, warm, steady, and when I looked down, there was a ring on my finger. I sat up, my heart lurching. "Really? Do I even have a say in this?" My voice came out sharper than I meant, trying to smother the part of me that thrilled at the dominant claim in his tone. "You do," he said, his eyes flicking to the crib where Sirin slept, her tiny chest rising and falling. "Just think about it. We'll be a family. You, me, her. No more running. No more hiding. You're mine now, and I'm never letting you go again. So make up your mind." My lips parted, but nothing came out. I wasn't sure if I wanted to say no. When he left for his meeting, I stayed by Sirin's crib longer than I needed to, watching her breathe, trying to anchor myself. But his words echoed in my head like a heartbeat. "Come with me. Let's be a family." Family. As if that word wasn't a scar already burned into me. as if I could just step into his world of cars and power and men bowing at his feet, like I belonged there. I told Grandma what he'd said. She wasn't surprised. She just nodded, as though she'd been expecting it, and asked the only question that mattered. What do you want? If I go with him, I whispered, I lose everything I've fought for, the little independence I scraped together, the dignity of saying I did this on my own. But if I stay, my throat tightened. If I stay, I'm denying her something I never had, a father who actually wants to be here. Grandma set her knitting aside and took my hand, her palm warm, steady. Sweetheart, she said softly, independence doesn't mean carrying the world on your back until it breaks you. It means having the freedom to choose. And love, her thumb brushed my knuckles. Love is a choice too, not just pheromones, not just bonds. A choice you make every day. What if I choose wrong? I murmured. Her smile was sad but sure when she responded. Then you get back up and choose again. That's what living is. She pulled me into her arms, her hand rubbing circles on my back the way she used to when I was a child. You've already done the hardest thing, she whispered. You brought life into this world when no one stood beside you. You loved her enough to fight when everyone else turned their back. That doesn't disappear if you let someone love you, too. I clung to her, heart aching, the weight of her words settling deep into me. Maybe she was right. Maybe love wasn't something that just happened to me. Maybe it was something I could choose. When Rio Minsick returned that evening, I told him my decision, and I'd never seen him smile so brightly. He pulled me into a kiss, letting me feel just how grateful he was. Within 3 days, we were ready to leave. I begged Grandma to come with us, but she insisted she was fine and needed to keep the diner open, though she promised to visit as often as she could. Driving into his city felt like stepping into another universe. Glass towers, endless streets, a world too big for someone like me. Yet Minsick carried me into it as if I belonged. At first, I resisted. Every time he pressed another credit card into my hand, every time he said, "You'll never need to worry about money again," my chest tightened. I wasn't used to being given things. I wasn't used to being cared for. But then I would glance at my daughter, our daughter, her small fists curled around his shirt when he lifted her, the way her bright brown eyes tracked him like he was the center of her universe. And I thought maybe, just maybe, I could allow this. He spoiled me shamelessly. He hired a nanny who treated my little girl like she was her own, respecting my decision to return to college. It was intoxicating and terrifying at once. When he introduced me to his family, I braced for the worst. I expected contempt. I expected polite disdain. Instead, I was pulled into warmth. His mother touched my cheek gently. His sisters fussed over Sirin, and his father clapped my shoulder like I was already one of them. For the first time, I thought maybe not all alphas are scum. Maybe I had just been unlucky until him. The months rolled quickly, and suddenly there was talk of wedding preparations. I tried to laugh it off, but Minsick was serious. "I claimed you the night I knotted you. This just makes it official." He had that look in his eyes again, the one that left no room for argument. So I wrote the invitation to my parents with trembling hands. I wasn't expecting them to come, but part of me wanted them to see me standing tall, not the shameful Omega they had cast out, but someone who had carved out a life despite them. I specifically stated that my brother was forbidden to attend, even though he tried to reach out to me several times after news of my wedding to Rio Minsick became the talk of the town. I didn't trust myself not to pull a gun to his head, with how much I hated him. The day of the wedding was like walking through a dream. My daughter was a tiny vision in white lace, wheeled down the aisle by Minsick's younger sister, scattering petals from her little basket. The crowd melted at the sight of her, cooing and smiling. My grandmother stood beside me, proud and unshaken, her hand steady as she walked me down the aisle. Her grip was stronger than I expected, her chin high, like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. Minsick stood at the end of the aisle, eyes fixed on me like I was the only one in the room. His smile was small but fierce, and my knees nearly buckled. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, and I wanted this. Not because I was fated, not because of duty, but because I wanted him. The ceremony blurred into vows, into rings, into the soft sound of my own voice saying yes. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw them, my parents, dressed impeccably, sitting in the second row as if they had never disowned me. My mother's eyes were wet, my father's jaw tight, both of them playing the roles of proud parents. After the ceremony, they approached me. My father's voice was low, controlled. You've finally brought glory to our family name. Jeha, I am proud of you. My mother clutched my hand, eyes wide with pleading and dotting on my appearance. For a second, my chest cracked. For a second, I was that boy again, aching for their love. But then I remembered the nights of sickness, the tears in the hospital, the silence when I needed them most. I took a breath. I only invited you, I said, willing my voice to be steady. So you could see, I am not useless. I am not a shame. I have a family now, and I don't need you. They froze, their faces twisting. My mother whispered, please, but I cut her off. I forgive you, I said softly, but forgiveness doesn't mean I want you in my life. This is goodbye. I turned, and Minseek was waiting by the limo, a wolfish smile playing on his lips. He didn't ask what had been said. He didn't need to. He just pulled me into a kiss, deep and certain, as the crowd erupted in cheers. When we broke apart, I was breathless. He whispered against my lips, mine, forever. And when he swept me into his arms, carrying me out like the world belonged to us, I didn't resist. I just thanked whatever gods had turned my worst nightmare into my greatest blessing. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.